Arcadian Vanguard presents The Wrestling News in your daily wrestling newscast for Saturday, March 18th, 2023. Good morning, I'm Mike Sempervive. We begin with last night's episode of Smackdown, broadcast live on Fox from the T-Mobile Center in Kansas City, Missouri. The show concluded with the long-awaited reunion of Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens as Owens saved his former friend from an attack by the Usos, and the two embraced in the ring as Cody Rhodes looked on approvingly from backstage. Rhodes had attempted to reconcile the two earlier in the evening, only to be rejected by a still hesitant Owens who appeared to have left the arena. Prior to the closing segment, the main event featured Drew McIntyre and Sheamus battling to a double countout in their match to determine the WrestleMania challenger for Intercontinental Champion Gunther. As a result, Adam Pearce declared that all three men would meet in a triple threat match for the title at WrestleMania instead. Gunther addressed the situation in a WWE digital exclusive posted after the show.
You want to comment on this? This is a disgrace. This place is a disgrace. That is just Adam Pearce covering up his own fault. That's all it is. That's why it's a triple threat match and not a singles match, how it should have been. Well, I'll tell you this. I've beaten Sheamus before, twice. So can I beat Drew McIntyre. And come WrestleMania, they will understand what it means when we say the mat is sacred.
Also on the show, SmackDown Women's Champion Charlotte Flair brawled with her WrestleMania challenger Rhea Ripley during an in-ring promo segment. Earlier in the show, Ripley had teamed with Dominic Mysterio to defeat Santos Escobar and Zelina Vega in a mixed tag team match when Ripley pinned Vega. In other results, Xavier Woods pinned LA Knight, and Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez bested Tegan Nox and Emma in a qualifying match for what was described as a women's showcase match at WrestleMania. The St. Patrick's Day Slam edition of AEW Rampage was presented last night on TNT, featuring matches taped Wednesday night at the Canada Life Center in Winnipeg, Manitoba. In the opening match, Powerhouse Hobbs defeated Rey Fenix to retain the TNT Championship in his first defense of the title. Hobbs and QT Marshall attacked Phoenix's interpreter and manager Alex Abrahantes after the match. Taya Valkyrie made her AEW in-ring debut on the show, beating Ava Lawless as undefeated TBS champion Jade Cargill, Layla Gray, and Mark Sterling watched the match from the entrance ramp. In other results, Daniel Garcia defeated Brody King thanks to illegal outside interference from Chris Jericho, and Matt Menard and Angelo Parker defeated the Bollywood Boys. In more All Elite Wrestling news, Saraya was legitimately fined by AEW for using a profanity directed at fans on live TV, as well as giving the middle finger to the crowd at last Wednesday night's Dynamite in Winnipeg, as confirmed on social media by Saraya herself. An internal memo has reportedly made the rounds in AEW addressing talent's use of profanity on TV, as well as other abusive language towards fans. It was reported that Saraya did not have clearance to use the language and gesture from the agent for the segment, BJ Whitmer. Saraya later responded to a tweet about the hostile fan reactions to her actions, writing, quote, "They were not happy. I loved it. Worth the fine," end quote. With some health-related news, here's the Wrestling News' Lou Kipilman.
Danhausen suffered a tear to his right pectoral muscle during his match at Revolution, according to a social media post yesterday from the AEW talent. It's not known how long the injury may keep him away from the ring, but Cody Rhodes recently was forced to miss 6 months of action, recovering from his own pectoral tear. The injury occurred during the AEW World Tag Team 4-Way title match, in which Danhausen teamed with Orange Cassidy against title holders The Guns, as well as The Acclaimed and Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal. Eddie Kingston has tested positive for COVID-19 and is quarantining, according to an announcement from Irish independent promotion OTT Wrestling. Kingston had been booked for OTT matches in Dublin, Belfast, and Wolverhampton over the weekend, including the promotion's Scrapper Mania 7 shows. Kingston was slated as the replacement for Jon Moxley, whom All Elite Wrestling pulled from the booking in order for Moxley to appear at AEW's first house show on Saturday in Troy, Ohio. It's also been noted that Kingston has apparently deleted or suspended his Twitter account, although it is not known if this is connected to the recent news or unrelated. Kingston previously contracted COVID last September and was forced to miss tapings for NJPW Strong. We'll have results from today's OTT show in Wolverhampton later in the newscast. Kofi Kingston underwent surgery yesterday at Andrews Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center in Birmingham, Alabama, to repair damage to his right ankle, according to a social media update from the New Day member. Kingston sustained the injury during a multi-participant brawl on the March 3rd Smackdown, during which Drew McIntyre landed awkwardly on him after leaping over the top rope to the outside of the ring. It is not known how much time Kingston might miss. Early estimates indicated it would be 5 weeks, but that was before it was known that the injury would require surgery. NXT Women's Champion Roxanne Perez is currently dealing with an undisclosed medical issue that could potentially keep her out of the ring for NXT Stand and Deliver WrestleMania weekend, according to a report in the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Perez had taken part in an injury angle on March 7th on the Roadblock episode of NXT, designed to temporarily write her off television. As mentioned earlier this week on NXT, the Stand and Deliver ladder match may be used to crown a new NXT Women's Champion if Perez is not ready in time. The exact nature of the issue isn't known, but it was reported that it's not an injury, but may nevertheless require her to take some extended time off. We will keep you updated as more information becomes available. For the wrestling news, I'm Lou Kipilman.
Turning to the independent scene, Davey Richards has announced his retirement amidst accusations of domestic violence while issuing a statement denying any wrongdoing. Several wrestling schools and promotions have severed ties with Richards, including Team Ambition Wrestling School in St. Louis, where he was a head trainer, as well as Prestige Wrestling in New Jersey. Richards has also officially finished up with MLW and is no longer under contract to the company, according to a PW Insider report. Richards' statement denied responsibility for his wife's bruised eye, pictures of which circulated on social media, claiming that the injury occurred during martial arts training. Said Richards, quote, "The allegations I adamantly deny, and if you look on CaseNet in Missouri under my name, Wesley David Richards, you'll see that there are no charges filed against me. However, I do understand the industry's stance on this matter. Everyone should feel safe at shows, and I do not want to be the person who damages that," end quote. This morning on Twitter, OTT Wrestling announced that Richards will not be replacing Eddie Kingston at this weekend's Scrappermania 7 shows. Game Changer Wrestling ran their Eye for an Eye event last night at the Melrose Ballroom in Queens and streamed on Fight Plus. In the main event, Masha Slamovich upended Nick Gage to win the GCW World Championship after putting Gage to sleep with a rear naked choke. Gage falls in his 6th defense after 161 days as champion. Also on the show in singles matches, Gringo Loco defeated Bandito, Blake Christian defeated Jack Cartwheel, Tony Deppen beat Willie Mack, Matt Cardona defeated Homicide with help from a debuting Steph DeLander, and Joey Janela made the 4th defense of his GCW Extreme title, defeating Grim Reaper. After the match, Pero and Charles Mason attacked Reaper, with Janela making the save. In tag team matches, the Time Splitters team of Kushida and Alex Shelley defeated Jordan Oliver and Speedball Mike Bailey, Sawyer Wreck and Rina Yamashita knocked off Los Macisos, and Bussy won a 4-way tag team match over the main event, Wasted Youth, and the Second Gear Crew combination of Mance Warner and Manders. In the show's opener, Cole Radrick won a 6-person scramble match, which also featured Steve Scott, Alex Price, Jimmy Lloyd, Starboy Charlie, and Yoya. Taking a look around the globe, in Europe, Night 1 of OTT Scrappermania 7 was held on Friday at the Hangar in Wolverhampton, West Midlands, England. In the main event, PAC, sent by AEW as part of the compensation for Jon Moxley, being pulled from the event, submitted Big Damo with the Brutalizer. Also on the show, Trent Seven defeated Sammy D to win the NLW Nationwide title. Night 2 of Scrappermania 7 will be held tonight at the National Stadium in Dublin. CMLL ran their weekly Friday Night Arena Mexico show last night in Mexico City. Titled Homenaje a dos Leyendas, the show honored CMLL's founder Salvador Ludaroff and women's lucha libre pioneer Irma Gonzalez. Streamed as a pay-per-view according to Lucha Blog, matches from Friday's show will be uploaded onto the company's YouTube page beginning on April 2nd. In the main event, Volador Jr. gained a measure of revenge on CMLL NWA historic welterweight champion Rocky Romero, surviving a Quadrangular de Caballeros match by pinning Romero after a Canadian destroyer and taking the hair of his rival. The bout saw 4 men begin with 2 eliminated along the way. Oraculo pinned Angel de Oro first before falling by submission to Romero, setting up the final between Romero and Volador. Romero had defeated Volador for the welterweight title on January 20th. The semi-main event saw Atlantis Jr. and Místico defeat the team of Dragon Rojo Jr., Niebla Roja, and Templario. Princesa Sugit defeated Reina Isis to win the inaugural 14-woman Irma Gonzalez tournament. Gonzalez, who was honored at the show last night, is one of the earliest women's wrestlers in Mexico, and at 86 years old, is also the oldest living luchadora. In a one-fall lightning match, Titan defeated Virus. Gran Guerrero, Stuka Jr., and Ultimo Guerrero beat Los Infernales, Euphoria, Hechicero, and Mephisto in a non-title match. After the bout, Los Guerreros challenged their vanquished foes for the CMLL World Trios title on next week's show. In the opener, Dulce Gardenia, Espiritu Negro, and Rey Cometa beat Magica Blanca, Magnus, and Rugido. Afterwards, Cometa challenged Blanca for a future shot at Blanca's Mexican national welterweight title. New Japan Pro Wrestling ran the Axe City Convention Center in Hamamatsu today, where the quarterfinals of the New Japan Cup tournament continued. Never Openweight champion Tama Tonga scored his first career singles victory over Hiroki Goto, while the newest Bullet Club member David Finlay knocked off Shota Umino. The winners move on to the semifinals, where they'll face off against each other on March 19th at the Gunma Convention Center in Takasaki. Sonata and Mark Davis earned their trip to Sunday's semifinals matchup with victories on Friday over Tetsuya Naito and Evil, respectively. Speaking of Sonata, due to his leaving the Los Ingobernables de Japón faction and joining Taka Michinoku's Just 5 Guys group on Friday, today's 8-man tag team match between LIJ and Chaos was changed. As a result, Bushi joined his LIJ stablemates Hiromu Takahashi, Shingo Takagi, and Tetsuya Naito in a losing effort against Lio Rush, Tomohiro Ishii, Toru Yano, and Yo. Bret Hart, Gorgeous George, Bob Backlund, and Keiji Muto are among those being inducted this year into the International Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame. The New York-based IPWHF announced its 3rd annual selection of inductees earlier this week. The voting is spread out in different categories based on time period and location. Hart and Backlund were selected for the Living North American category, while in addition to Muto, Kenta Kobashi will also be inducted in the Living International category. Gorgeous George and Vern Gagne will go in under the posthumous post-1925 North America category, while the posthumous post-1925 International category includes Mitsuhara Misawa and Burt Asarati. The women's inductee will be former women's world champion June Byers. Pre-1925 posthumous inductees include 2-time American heavyweight champion Dan McLeod, 3-time American heavyweight champ Dr. Benjamin F. Roller, Estonian strongman George Lurich, trainer to George Hackenschmidt, as well as early catch wrestling pioneer Tom Connors. The inductions are scheduled to take place at the MVP Arena in Albany, New York on Saturday, August 26. In the interest of transparency, we note that the Wrestling News' Brian R. Solomon is a member of the IPWHF Selection Committee. And before we leave you today, we'd like to remind you that however you consume your content, you can find the wrestling news 24 hours a day and 7 days a week across social media. On Twitter, follow us at Wrestling News AV. Our Facebook page is also Wrestling News AV. The Wrestling News can also be found on the Arcadian Vanguard YouTube page. And for those who utilize Amazon Echo devices, just tell Alexa to play the Wrestling News podcast. And remember to make sure you add podcast at the end. Once again, for daily updates, breaking news, and more, follow the Wrestling News across social media. And that's the news for today. If anything happens, we will be here to tell you about it. No clickbait, no paywall, just the Wrestling News. The Wrestling News is a division of Arcadian Vanguard, and the Wrestling Newscast is a production of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network.